In at 5, fan death. This is quite a bizarre one that I'm honestly surprised I never heard of before. Supposedly in Korea there is a genuine fear of fan death. Now fan death is a well-known belief in Korean culture where it is thought that if you have an electric fan running in a closed room with an unopened window, you will quite literally die. Now of course there is no definitive evidence to support this strange claim, yet it's still widely believed. Where this legend came from is unclear, but fears of electric fans date back to their introduction to Korea, with stories existing in the 20s and 30s, warning the risks of nausea, asphyxiation and facial paralysis to electric fans. Yeah, this is not a joke. Now you're probably asking yourself what the proposed cause of death actually are. Right, well first up is hypothermia, heat stress. Now, air movement will increase sweat evaporation, which cools the body, but in extreme heat, when the blown air is warmer than the body's temperature, it will increase the heat stress placed on the body and in turn causing heat exhaustion. Now the EPA, aka the Environmental Protection Agency, discourages people from using fans in closed rooms without ventilation. However, they do approve of a fan if a window is open. Very strict fan rules here, guys. Now the second proposed cause of death is asphyxiation. It is alleged that fans may cause asphyxiation by oxygen displacement and carbon dioxide intoxication. Honestly, I've spent my whole life using fans and I'm still here. I think, anyway. I don't know. In at 4, red surgical mask. As most know, plastic surgery is quite a big deal in Korean culture, as it is in America and the rest of the world, with the pursuit of perfection a thing that most strive towards. So this legend goes, I quote, "A man is sitting in an empty subway car when a tall, thin woman walks in and sits in front of him. Her hair is dark and long, it covers most of her face, but he can see that she has a red surgical mask on. Thinking nothing of it, he leans back and watches the door close. The man notices her eyes and she catches him staring. He smiles at her. She asks the man, 'Am I pretty?' Taken aback, the man stammers, 'Yes.' She takes her mask off, revealing the rest of her face. There was a gash from ear to ear, her gums, teeth and ligaments showing. She screams at the man, 'Am I pretty now?' In terror, the man tries to get her as far away from the woman as possible. She takes out a scalpel and makes her way to him when the doors open and the man runs out. Now, this legend may sound familiar to a lot of you, and that's because it shares very similar roots to Slit-Mouthed Woman, a malevolent figure from Japanese folklore who partially covers her face with a mask or object and carries some sort of sharp instrument. According to popular legend, she asks potential victims if they find her attractive. If they respond no, she will kill them with her weapon. However, if they say yes, she will reveal that the corners of her mouth are slit from ear to ear. Now it's uncertain where the legend originated from, whether it was Japan or Korea, but regardless, it's straight up terrifying. Coming in at 3, soul-stealing dreams. Now this one is truly terrifying because not only does it involve your dreams, but also your dead family members. It's The legend goes that dreaming of a dead loved one is a bad omen, especially near water. It is said that the dead family member will call you towards them, and if you embrace them in your dream, they will steal your soul away. Lovely. One particular story occurred on a Korean TV show where they would discuss hauntings and encounters with the paranormal. I quote, "During one of the episodes they had a family on where they talk about how their grandmother had passed away. The man said that he dreamt that his grandmother was beckoning him over while she was waist deep in water. For some reason he didn't go and he told his wife. His wife explained that going into the arms of a dead person, in water no less, was a sure sign that your soul was going to be stolen. The husband said he kept having the same dream, and every time he was closer and closer to the grandmother until one day the family realized that they had kept something of hers. They paid respects to her once more and the dream stopped." Lesson number 1. If you're from Korea, do not hang on to any of your deceased family members' belongings. They will literally steal your soul for it. Coming in at 2, the virgin ghost. Stories of virginal ghosts are everywhere in Korea. They're often found in abandoned buildings, but more typically they're found in hospitals, schools, bathrooms, cemeteries, and wooded areas. Just don't go to these places and you're cool, I guess. Now, these virgin ghosts almost always have long hair covering their faces and dressed in white garbs. This is due to the fact that tradition stated that single women should always wear their hair up, and the white garb is usually worn during death. In Confucian Korean tradition, it was a woman's role to serve her father, husband, and sons. If she died before being able to fulfill this goal, she would be cursed to walk the earth for eternity. Now, legend goes that when you're in the presence of a virgin ghost, you will know it. This is because you will feel a sudden change in temperature, perhaps a sudden chill, and the wind will often change direction. One story goes that, I quote, "A man was living on the topmost floor of the apartment building. One late night, he heard someone knocking on his door. He did not find anyone at the door, but he heard a voice telling him to count to 100 with his eyes closed and without making any noise. He started counting but got curious at 49. He opened his eyes and found a virgin ghost staring at him. It is said that virgin ghosts are most likely to be found in abandoned buildings. They are dressed in white and have long hair. Very spooky indeed." And finally, in at number 1, the haunted bathroom. Now, for some very strange reason, Koreans have a lot, and I mean a lot, of stories about haunted schools, particularly haunted school bathrooms. Yeah, it's unsettling. But to be fair, Korean schools are definitely eerie. What with their dark stairwells and long hallways, they seem to be never ending. And of course, the creepy, oftentimes half-lit fluorescent lights. Enter Korean school bathrooms, which in pop culture are often depicted as decrepit, old, crumbling, and always dark. Now, legend has it that one of these stalls in these bathrooms, particularly the stall located towards the back, is where a girl killed herself and supposedly now haunts it. Students whisper that the toilet flushes by itself and that the door will close with no wind around. Rumor has it that if you're alone in the bathroom, you can hear the crying. Some also state that you can often see her watching you from inside the mirror. Another legend from a similar vein talks of a ghost that emerges from the toilet and asks you if you will use red or blue toilet paper. Honestly, neither. We all use white, right? If you choose red, the ghost will cut you open. If you choose blue, the ghost will choke you to death, leaving your body blue from suffocation. It's a lose-lose no matter what.
Coming in at number 5, we've got the Peace Picture. I love this story. Honestly, I had no idea that it came from Korea either. When I worked as a camp counselor, I would tell this on night hikes all the time, and let me tell you, it really scared some campers. There are a few different versions with different main characters and different setup scenarios, but the meat and potatoes all pretty much stay the same. Alright, so the legend goes a little something like this. A middle schooler is biking home with his friends and they come to a forest path. Our main character lives through the woods and his pals take a different route home. So the group splits up and the young lad cycles through the trees. As he's going along, something catches his eye. There's a Polaroid picture lying face down at the foot of a tree. He pulls off the path, hops off his bike, and notices that there's a broken bicycle behind the tree. Picking up the photo, he sees a cute girl smiling at the camera, flashing the peace sign. You know the one. He really likes the picture, so he pockets it and heads home. That night, the boy feels an overwhelming urge to look out the window. When he does, he notices a young girl standing in his yard, facing away from him. He calls out to her, but she doesn't react. Feeling strange, he heads downstairs and walks into the yard, but the girl is nowhere to be seen. The next day, he shows his friends the picture and tells them the story of the girl in his yard, but none of them seem to recognize her. They go about their day at school, and then it's time to go home. On the ride home, the boy keeps an eye out for the girl about town, but doesn't see anyone resembling her. He and his friends make it to the woods again and split up. Distracted, the boy pedals his way through the flora and fauna. Suddenly, he catches a glimpse of someone behind a tree and cranes his neck to see if it could be her. Unfortunately, this causes him to lose his focus and crash. He doesn't survive. Weeks later, another kid is wandering through the woods. They see a Polaroid photograph lying in the decomposing leaves. Picking the picture up, they see a really cute girl holding up 3 fingers. Thinking it's a nice photo, they pocket it and head right along. Creepy, right? There are many variants, with car wrecks instead of bike crashes and grown men instead of school children, but the peace sign evolving into a 3 with another victim stays the same. Coming in at number 4, we've got virgin ghosts. It's every frat boy from the 80s worst nightmare, dying a virgin. Apparently this fear crosses cultures too. Known in Korea as the Chonyo-gwishin, they can be found all over the place. Folks say that you might run into a virgin ghost in abandoned buildings, hospitals, schools, bathrooms, cemeteries, and forests. So basically, anywhere you might have found a living virgin. They're characterized by their long dark hair that completely covers their face, and they're always wearing white clothing. Look behind that hair and you'll notice they look pretty bummed too. I suppose that comes with the title, huh? People say you'll know you're near one when the temperature drops suddenly and the wind changes direction. Chills are a common symptom too, but those kinda come with the previous two. In Confucian Korean culture, it was a woman's role to serve her father, husband, and sons. If someone died before doing these things, she would be cursed to wander the earth forever. So if a woman was to die a virgin, she would become a Chonyo Guishin. This comes with a fair deal of bitterness. Often, these ghosts will wander around the place where their former family lived, doing their best to cause problems for their good old relatives. Apparently, erecting, pardon the pun, phallic statues could calm an angry virgin ghost down. This doesn't work, or if town council won't approve a long, hard statue, you can always try to introduce the ghost to an equally single male. The male virgin ghost, or the Chonggak Guishin, is always looking for someone to marry to put their soul to rest. So if you find one virgin ghost, you'd best get to work finding another. Coming in at number 3, we've got dreaming of dead family. You would think that seeing a dead family member might be nice. You know, maybe they're here to give you some advice or warn you of impending danger, or maybe they're just showing up because they miss you. Aww. However, there's a South Korean urban legend that says dreaming of a dead loved one is bad news. Do your best to resist their lovely charm, alright? It's said that if you dream of a dead family member or friend, they're going to try and steal your soul. They'll call you towards them, and if you head on down and give them a hug, it's game over. This is especially common near water, apparently. If these dreams persist, it's best to look into why they're happening. It's likely that whoever's calling out to you thinks that you owe them something, or you're holding on to one of their belongings. To figure out for sure, people advise heading out to wherever they're buried to pay respects. That should take care of the potentially soul-stealing dreams, and if not, well, I don't know what to tell you. Keep avoiding hugs, I guess. Coming in at number 2, we've got dog-human hybrids. Stories of people hearing disembodied voices while walking alone have been around pretty much forever, but this particular legend explains the mysterious phenomenon in a pretty creepy way. Around the 1970s, all sorts of folks started telling tall tales of finding truly disturbing creatures late at night. While strolling along, they hear a voice. They look up, they look down, they look left, they look right, and nobody's around, so they resume walking, but the voice calls out again. It's talking to them. A little paranoid now, the person checks behind them and looks to see if anyone is leaning out of a window or something. No dice. Then a little dog runs up to them. Oh, what a cute little dog, they think. But then it speaks, using language. And the person gets a good look at the four-legged creature, and oh god, it's got a human face. Anyone with unsoiled trousers at that point is a champion. These chimeric abominations are apparently quite common in Japanese and Korean folklore. It's said that someone who lives a sinful life will end up reincarnated as a half-dog, half-human monstrosity. Like, it would be cool to live the carefree life of a dog, but definitely not with a human head and intelligence. But considering my sinful modern lifestyle, I'm destined to become a dog man. What's a good name for one of those? And finally at number 1, we've got Sesame Seeds. I know what you're thinking. Keegan, you must be losing it. Sesame seeds aren't an urban legend. They're an edible plant byproduct, delicious on bagels and breads. But you see, I know sesame seeds are real. But there are plenty of legends concerning them in Korea. Remember when I warned all the trypophobes to skedaddle? Well, this is why. There are a few different stories about the ill effects of sesame seeds. One concerns a young woman taking a rejuvenating sesame seed bath. She learns of a lovely new skin treatment where you pour sesame seeds into your bath water. Supposedly this does wonders, leaving you extra youthful and glowing with super clean pores. So the woman decides to give it a try. She fills the tub, tosses in the seeds, and steps into the bath. Her mother, knowing how excited her daughter was to try this treatment, begins to worry after she doesn't come out of the bathroom for an hour. She knocks on the door but gets no answer. Fearing the worst, the mother forces the door open and stumbles in. Her daughter's unconscious in the tub with sesame seeds stuck on all of her grotesquely open pores. The seeds have taken root in her skin. Oh, yuck. The alternate telling of this tale involves sesame seed skin cream with similar terrifying results. I suppose the pimple-popping crowd might find this fascinating, but for most folks, this is hideously upsetting. Usually the victim in this sesame seed disaster is able to have all the seeds removed, but it is a time-consuming and painful process. However, leave the seeds too long and you might end up as a human planter. Imagine the roots growing deeper and deeper into your flesh. It's kind of like that watermelon seed urban legend where if you swallow a seed, you'll grow one of the bulbous fruits in your stomach.
Coming in at 5, Cockroach Facial. Now this one is incredibly disturbing, and if you have a fear of cockroaches, this number is not for you. Now the legend is short but sweet and tells the story of a man plagued with acne. He reads an article online about a new way of cleansing his skin. All he needs to do is catch a cockroach before he goes to bed and place it on his pillow.
Out of desperation, the man followed the instructions. He caught a cockroach outside of his apartment and placed the insect on his pillow before he went to bed. When he awoke, the cockroach was gone. He quickly ran to the mirror to see that his acne had also cleared up overnight. In pure disbelief and excitement, he got dressed and went to school. The next morning, however, he began to feel itchy and pain on his face. He took a closer look in the mirror and found that his pores had now been filled with cockroach eggs. Lesson number 1, perhaps don't use insects to clear up your skin. There's medication for that. Yep, I told you this one is disgusting. I think from here on out I'm going to be sleeping with a pillowcase over my face for protection. Coming in at 4, fan death. Now, this is a crazy but widely held belief in Korean culture. It is thought that running an electric fan in a closed room with unopened or no windows will cause death. Very strange, I know. Now, there is no concrete evidence to support this theory, which is why it's an urban legend. However, the belief does come from some legitimate causes. Now, where the idea came from is unclear, but fears about electric fans date back to their introduction in Korea, with some stories dating back to the 1920s and 30s, warning of the risks of nausea, asphyxiation, and facial paralysis from the new technology. One conspiracy theory is that the South and North Korean governments perpetuated the myth as propaganda to curb the energy consumption of households in the 70s energy crisis. But state reports that the myth is actually much older than that, maybe as far back as the introduction of the fan in North Korea, and cites a 1927 article about strange harm from electric fans. Now, there are a handful of proposed causes, one of which is asbestos. During the 70s, Korea experienced a sharp increase in the use of asbestos for building as it had a number of flame retardant properties. Inhalation of asbestos fibers can lead to various serious lung conditions, including asbestosis and cancer. So, when in an enclosed space, asbestos dust or fibers pose a legitimate threat. Asphyxiation is also theorized, with it being alleged that fans may cause asphyxiation by oxygen displacement and carbon dioxide intoxication. Coming in at number 3, the virgin ghost. Stories of virginal ghosts are rife in Korean culture, with them specifically being called Cheonyo-gwishin. They can often be found in abandoned buildings, hospitals, schools, bathrooms, cemeteries, and wooded areas. Most of these stories describe the ghosts as having long hair covering their faces, with sullen features, dressed in white garbs. Now, it is said that you'll supposedly know when you're in the presence of one of these virginal ghosts when you feel a sudden change of temperature. The wind will change direction and you will feel a sudden chill. One story from a user on Thought Catalog describes the time they lived on the top floor of an apartment building. It is noted that in Korea there aren't any elevators in older apartment buildings, so you'd have to walk all the way up, which usually meant the top floor had the cheapest rent, and the ones at the bottom being the most expensive. Now, the man awoke one night to someone knocking on the door. He asked who it was, and the voice said that he should close his eyes and count to 100 and not make a sound, otherwise he would die. He opened the door, but there was no one there. Being a superstitious man, he closed his eyes and began to count to 100. He remained still until he got to 49, and opened his eyes out of curiosity. Standing in front of him was Cheonyo-gwishin. What happened to the man, we have no idea, but you can only imagine. Coming in at number 2, the red surgical mask. Now, it is widely known that plastic surgery is a big part of Korean culture, with many striving to achieve their own idea of beauty and perfection that almost everyone aims for. Now, one particular urban legend from Korea goes like this. A man was sitting in an empty subway car when a tall, thin woman walked in and sat in front of him. Her hair was dark and long and covered most of her face, but the man could see she had a red surgical mask on. Thinking nothing of it, he leaned back and watched the door close. The man then noticed the woman's eyes, and she quickly caught him staring. He smiled at her. She then asked the man, "Am I pretty?" Taken aback by this, the man stuttered, "Yes." The woman then proceeded to remove her mask, revealing the rest of her face. From ear to ear, there was a huge gash, showing off her gums, teeth, and ligaments. She then screamed at the man, "Am I pretty now?" In terror, the man tried to get as far away from her as possible, fleeing the woman who remained on the train, scalpel in hand. Now, this may sound very familiar to some people, with it sharing many similarities to the Japanese urban legend Kuchisake Onna. Moral of the story: if you're riding the subway and a pretty lady in a red mask asks you if she looks pretty, don't respond, just run. And finally, coming in at number 1, Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un is a North Korean politician serving as supreme leader of North Korea since 2011, and has served as leader of the Workers' Party of Korea since 2012. Kim rules a dictatorship where elections are not free and fair, government critics are persecuted, media is controlled by the regime, internet access is limited by the regime, and there is no freedom of religion. His regime also operates an extensive network of prisons and labor camps that have imprisoned and killed millions of people, with the regime convicting people for political crimes and uses collective punishment whereby members of a family get punished for the crimes of one person. Now, the North Korean leader has had a series of health issues dating back to 2009, where reports suggested Kim Jong-un was a diabetic and suffered from hypertension. He is also known to be a heavy smoker. In 2014, Kim did not appear in public for 6 weeks, with state media reporting that he was suffering from an uncomfortable physical condition. Prior to that, he had been seen limping. Now, jumping ahead in time, in April 2020, another period of absence from public appearance led to speculation around his health. He had been absent on the Day of the Sun, April 15th, celebrating the country's founding father Kim Il-sung. Daily NK then reported that Kim had gone to a hospital for a cardiovascular surgery on April 12th, with CNN reporting that he was in grave danger from the surgery. News began to spread around the world that the North Korean leader had died due to complications with the surgery. However, on April 26, South Korea's foreign policy advisor Moon Chung-un issued a statement stating Kim Jong-un is alive and well. He has been staying in the Wonsan area since April 13th. However, the leader has still not been seen, with rumors still spreading that he did pass away.
In at number 4, haunted bathrooms. This one is pretty messed up. So apparently there's a popular urban legend in Korea that suggests ghosts live in school toilets. And apparently they will stick out their hands while you're using the toilet and ask you if you want red or blue toilet paper. I would just run out screaming, but apparently some people stick around to answer the question. If you answer red, then the ghost kills you by cutting you up. And if you answer blue, then it kills you by suffocating you. Now, this definitely seems like an urban legend, and I don't think it could be real. However, there are so many schools in Korea that are said to be haunted. And in these schools, the bathrooms are usually a mess and there's poor lighting. So there's always ghost stories about the bathrooms. There's been reported cases of suicide in stalls, toilets flushing on their own, and people are always claiming to hear someone crying, but then discover that they were in the bathroom alone. So I mean, you never know. This might not be far from the truth. Virgin ghosts. Yes, if you believe in ghosts, then there is a good chance you will believe that this urban legend might be real. Turns out ghosts and virgins are major fixtures of Korean culture, so therefore virgin ghosts are a thing. Apparently, these ghosts are found in abandoned buildings and forests. And just like creepy ghosts in horror movies, they have really long dark hair that's conveniently covering their face, and more often than not, they will be wearing a white dress. They were said to be really common back in the day as a warning to society, since to die a virgin, which in those days meant single, was a disgrace to the society. Right before they appear to you, you'll notice the temperature drop rather suddenly. They're said to dart from the shadows and kill you, so you don't continue to bring shame on your family. Yeah, that's kind of a harsh one. Coming in at number 2, elevator. Now, many people have claimed to have this happen to them, but this first story began with a 19-year-old named Karuko. Karuko lived on the 14th floor. She was coming home late from university one night. When she got into her building, she went into the elevator. Just as the doors were about to close, a handsome man stuck out his hand to stop it. He stepped into the elevator and told her that he lived on the 13th floor. The two talked while the elevator reached his floor. When it got to his floor, he got out and with a creepy smile on his face, pulled out a knife and he said, "I'll meet you upstairs." Then he bolted to the staircase. Before Kuroko knew what was going on, the elevator doors closed. So clearly she was freaking out. No matter what button she hit, the elevator didn't stop, and sadly she met her death when the doors opened again. Many people say that this is why elevators now have stop buttons. So many people have said that this has happened to them, and they all describe the man as looking the same. But he's never been captured, which leads many people to believe that this is just an urban legend. However, many women still spread the warning to beware of a tall, handsome man who tries to get in an elevator with you while you're alone.